I just wanted to give a shout out to all the ladies that are watching my channel from around the world. Over 20% of my global audience is women, and that's absolutely fantastic as we're seeing the women's rugby game grow across the world. It's brilliant to see, and of course the Black Ferns did so well at the Olympics by winning that back-to-back gold medal for New Zealand. So women's rugby is on the growth, that's for sure. It's absolutely brilliant. Let me know where you're watching the channel from. If you are a lady watching this channel today, I'd be really interested to know where you're tuning in from. Okay, let's get on with today's video. G'day everyone, and welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark. If you haven't been here before, my name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi bloke and I love the game of rugby. I'm living in Cancun in Mexico and bringing you these videos from the jungles of the Yucatan Peninsula. So there we go. A lot of people have commented about my backdrop and the beautiful trees. Well, this is all part of the original jungle that covered the entire Yucatan Peninsula. Cancun and a number of other cities were actually built throughout the jungle. So this is not some kind of man-made park. This is actual wild jungle that's been here for many thousands of years, and we've just put a few pieces of equipment inside it. So there you go, a little bit of background about here in Cancun today. Okay, now it was great to read many of your comments over the weekend after this round of games and talking about your excitement of the upcoming series that's going to take place in South Africa. So what I thought I'd do over the next couple of days is make two videos talking about the possible preparation that each team's going to go for and maybe the strategy they're going to use to try and come out on top in those two games in South Africa. In today's video I'm going to focus on the Springboks and talk about what I think Rassie and co might be planning in terms of their strategy to take on the All Blacks, and then I'd love to hear your point of view. So don't be shy in leaving a comment. And talking about comments, some good news to report from over the weekend. We had hundreds of comments to my videos and I only issued 2 yellow cards. So there we go. It started off pretty well, the old card system. So keep that up everyone, and respect each other. That's all I'm asking for on this channel. Okay, so let's get talking about the Springboks and what's Rassie going to come up with. What innovative ideas, what creative ways is he going to find to surprise the All Blacks when they first take to the field in Johannesburg in just under 2 weeks time from now? Well, I think there's going to be some key areas in this game where Rassie's going to focus, and he's going to look hard at what the All Blacks have been putting out on the pitch so far. Of course, they've had those 2 games against England. Then we saw them go and play that game against Fiji in San Diego. And then we've seen 2 test matches against Argentina. And from an All Blacks point of view, they've been very different games, haven't they, in terms of performance level. So I think Rassie, being the shrewd orchestrator that he is, he's going to be looking at that All Black performances, looking at those players that have been playing for the All Blacks, and just seeing where England and Argentina in particular put the All Blacks under a lot of pressure and start to build a game plan around that. I think one of the areas that we're going to look at today is the area of kicking in general play, and I think this is an area where the Springboks might put a bit of focus on the All Blacks for a couple of reasons. So when it comes to kicking in general play, I think there's going to be 2 different areas of kicking we're going to see from the Springboks in these games. The first one's going to be the box kick, and I think the All Blacks, when they get under pressure from a contestable point of view, they can appear to be a little bit vulnerable. So I think Rassie's going to test them out in that area. I think it's going to be interesting to see whether that box kick is used from a strategic point of view from the Springboks. If the All Blacks select Caleb Clark and Will Jordan on the wings, those are 2 players that I think have a little bit of vulnerability under the high ball. Of course, Beauden Barrett at the back can be pretty safe under the high ball, but if we're talking about those wingers having to get involved, that could be an area that the Springboks focus on. And then the other general kicking in play, I think we're going to see some long kicks into space from Sasha Feinberg. We're going to see the All Blacks put back into their territory, and a lot of pressure coming on from the defensive side. We're going to see Damien Diolandi and Jesse Creel, if they're going to be the Springboks centre pairing in these test matches, get up and put a lot of pressure on the All Blacks. So from a kicking point of view, I think that's how the Springboks are going to look at it. Box kicks for some pressure, and then finding open territory at the back of the All Blacks field to push up in the defence and put some pressure on them. Let me know what you think of that in the comments. And then of course the next area I think the Springboks are going to focus, and of course it's their strength area, it's the forwards and their ability to be able to dominate for long periods in the forward play. Now we all know that the South African bench is extremely strong. The bomb squad is likely to come on in this game, and the All Blacks are going to be under pressure for an entire 80 minutes of this game from the South African forwards. Now I think that's going to be something that's a very different look for the All Blacks compared to what they've been seen so far in 2024. Yes, the English forwards did very well against the All Blacks, but going up to the South Africans, that's another level again. And I think across the entire 80 minutes when that bomb squad comes on, it's going to put the All Black forwards and their bench under a lot of pressure. So I think that's going to be another area where Rassie and his team focus immensely on. They're going to be looking at their strategy in terms of who's going to come off the bench. We saw Malcolm Marx played very, very well against Australia, scoring 2 tries in the weekend. So he's getting back into some very rich vein of form. And I expect those South African bench players to be really on their mettle for these games against the All Blacks. So look for the forward domination to be an area where Rassie tries to really focus on for this first game in particular against the All Blacks. And then the next area where I think the Springboks are going to surprise the All Blacks a little bit, particularly in this first game in Johannesburg, is the width that they play with and the speed that they've got out wide. Now we've seen their South Africans play a little bit more of an expansive game this year. The impact of Tony Brown is definitely coming into this team, and we're starting to see once they get that good platform through the forwards, they've got a willingness to get outside and be creative, and a lot of that is coming from the impact of Sasha Feinberg being in there at number 10, I believe, for South Africa. It's giving them more creativity and it's giving the defence a lot more problems to deal with. The All Blacks haven't seen Sasha play yet in terms of face-to-face, so this is going to be their first experience, and I think Rassie's going to use Sasha in this role of being able to give the All Blacks a lot of hard time when it comes to their inside defensive channels. This is going to open up opportunities for South Africa out wide, and as I said, the All Blacks haven't seen South Africa playing this new style of expansive rugby too much in the past, so this could catch them unawares, and I think Rassie's going to use this as part of his strategy. Let me know what you think of that in the comments. Okay, next up for South African strategies and what I think Rassie and crew are going to bring to this game, of course, is the rush defense. We've seen it for the All Blacks so far throughout the beginning of their campaign this year in 2024. When the forwards are not getting to the breakdown quickly, when TJ Perenara or the halfback combinations are under pressure, the All Blacks start to go backwards and they start to look a little bit panicked. So I'm sure that this is going to be a plan by the Springboks in the first game in Johannesburg. We're going to see the rush defense coming up. There's going to be a lot of pressure on TJ Perenara if he is selected as the starting halfback for the All Blacks. And I expect that's going to be an area where they really focus on, because if they're able to put a lot of pressure on TJ Perenara, then that means that Damian McKenzie or whoever's going to be playing in at number 10 is going to be under an extreme amount of pressure as well. So look for that as being one of the key strategic points that I think South Africa are going to bring to this first game in Johannesburg. They're going to put a lot of pressure on the All Black halfback, making sure the rush defence is back up in the face of the inside backs, and it's going to create a lot of pressure for the All Blacks. But there's 2 players in particular that I think we need to keep an eye on. One of them is Damian Deolandi and the other is Jesse Kriel. Those guys are a little bit of unsung heroes for the Springboks when it comes to defence, I feel. And Jesse Kriel did a lot of work against Australia up and down the field. So watch him against the All Blacks, because not only is there going to be inside pressure through the rush defence on the inside channels of the All Blacks, and TJ Perenara, Damian McKenzie and Beauden Barrett getting a very hard time from the Springbok loosies, but when the ball does go out wide and we're seeing the likes of Anton Leonard-Brown and Rico Ioane out there for the All Blacks, Jesse Kriel and Damian Deolandi are going to be given a job to really cut those guys down, because Rassie knows that the New Zealand wing options and Will Jordan and Caleb Clark possibly for this game are going to be very instrumental for the All Blacks in terms of getting them out wide around the South African defence and possibly scoring points. So I think that's going to be an area through the centres that we're going to see a lot of focus on the defence side from the Springboks. Another area where I think Rassie is going to put a lot of focus on is in the loose forwards and making sure South Africa wins this battle in terms of domination over the Kiwis. For me so far, the only good performance I've seen from the Kiwis Lucies was in the first 50 minutes of that game against Argentina in game 2. The rest of the time, they haven't looked as good as their opposition. I thought England gave them a bit of a hard time. We'll forget a minute for the Fiji game and we'll talk about the Argentinian game. And I thought in that first Argentinian game we saw the likes of Pablo Matera and Marcos Crema and also Martin Gonzalez really take it to the All Blacks back three, and that caused them a lot of problems. Yes, they did turn that around at Eden Park and they performed very well for the first 50 minutes of that game, but again I saw that pressure starting to come off in the last 30 minutes. We're talking about players like Peter Steph-Toihe, Sia Kolesi. These players are a massive point of the Springboks game, and I think they're really going to go in there and give the All Black Lucies a real hard time. Plus they have a height advantage as well, so unless the All Blacks play around with their selection in the back three, I think the Springboks are going to have an opportunity here both in the lineouts but also in the breakdown and general play. We've seen Peter Steph-Toihe playing absolutely fantastic rugby in the last couple of games. I expect him to go to another level against the All Blacks and cause them a lot of problems. So how do I think South Africa can ultimately win this first game against the All Blacks? Well, I think it's going to come down to consistency of power over the course of 80 minutes. I think there's no team in the world at the moment that can continue to put the pressure on for 80 minutes in a game of international test rugby than the South Africans can, and that's because of their depth. They've got depth that can come in off the bench, not only change a game but keep the momentum going if they're going very, very well. We saw a bit of a little mixed display from the South Africans in the weekend in Perth. A lot of that I put down to the weather conditions. They were really lousy, and it wasn't conducive to the type of rugby that the Springboks wanted to play. I expect back on a hard ground in Johannesburg we're going to see a different Springbok team, both in the selections of course, because we know that some of their key players were rested. They're going to come back fresh and hungry to take on this All Black team, and we're going to see them fresh so they can go and put a lot of physicality into this All Black team over 80 minutes of rugby. Now, a lot of the South African viewers of my channel have said that the Springboks didn't play that well in the two games in Australia. Well, they won both of those games, and I think that was a real big key psychologically for Rassie and the coaching crew, because they wanted the Springboks to go home to take on the All Blacks with a high level of motivation and also confidence and self-belief. And I think winning those two games in Australia, despite the level of play sometimes, I think that would have been a psychologically really good thing for the Springboks. They're now going to get home in front of a home crowd in Johannesburg. They're going to be absolutely pumped up to play this All Black team, and I think it's going to take their overall performance to another level. Now, another area I think the Springboks are going to be very dangerous in and being focused on is their counter-attacking from the New Zealand kicking. I suspect the New Zealand kick strategy is going to be varied in terms of some short chip kicks over the South African defence, but also some big long kicks into general play. If we see Geordie Barrett in there at all, he's got a big boot on him and he might be selected, so we get that big kick down into the Springboks territory. And I think Rassie is going to plan for this because the counter-attacking opportunity for the Springboks is huge. You've got Sasha who can go back and bring that ball back with the likes of Willie Leroux, and then the two Springboks wingers, Cheslin Colby and Kurtley Arendse, are going to be extremely dangerous on a counter-attacking offensive. So I think there's going to be some practice around this. There's going to be some focus on it for the Springboks to think about how they're going to counter-attack against the All Black kicking in this first game. Now, we all know when it comes to Rassie, we've got one of the most creative and masterful coaches in world rugby at the moment, and who knows what surprises he's going to spring. We're all sitting here today thinking it's going to be the bomb squad 6-2 split. Maybe it's not. Maybe we're going to see 7-1. Maybe we're going to see 5-3. He's going to throw something out there. I don't know exactly what it might be yet. That's going to surprise this All Blacks team. And I'm sure Scott Robertson's going to be sitting down with his coaching team doing a lot of homework on the South African team, and that's exactly what Rassie's expecting them to do. So I think Rassie's going to come up with something that you and I don't even expect to see in this first game, and it may be to do with the way that we see the split on the bench. Let me know what you think in the comments, whether Rassie's going to pull a rabbit out of the hat. So there you go, there's some ideas that I've got around how I think the South Africans might be prepping for this first game against the All Blacks in Johannesburg in just under 2 weeks' time. Let me know in the comments what you think of the things that I've raised and whether or not there's some other elements that you think might come into factor in that first game. I really think one of the keys here is going to be Sasha Feinberg. The All Blacks haven't played against him yet. He's bringing a new dimension to this South African backline, and as a result of that, this is going to put a lot of pressure on the Kiwis' defence to make sure they've got him covered, because if he runs himself, he can create great breaks. We've seen that in the games that he's played, but if there's a lot of attention put on him from a defensive point of view, then it opens up opportunities in other areas of the Springboks backline, and we've seen them very good from set pieces, being able to go very wide and scoring tries on the wing. And when you've got players like Rassie and you've got Jesse Kriel out there and you've got Willie LaRue coming in from fullback, the South Africans are going to be very, very dangerous out wide. So there you go, there's my thoughts around some of the strategic preparation that I think the Springboks might be doing and getting ready for the All Blacks for that first game in Johannesburg in just over a week's time. Let me know in the comments what you've thought about the things that I've shared, and of course come up with ideas of your own and let me know what you think they might be doing to take on the All Blacks. Now I'm going to be back again tomorrow and I'll be doing a similar video but talking about the All Blacks strategic intent and what they might be planning on doing in that first game against the Springboks in South Africa. So come back and make sure you check that one out as well. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please consider it. It's free, it costs you nothing, but it helps me out a lot to achieve my goal with this YouTube channel, which is to help grow the game of rugby across the world just by sharing my passion for the game. I'm not a rugby pundit, I'm not a sports commentator, I'm merely just a Kiwi bloke living in Mexico who loves the game of rugby, and I just want to share that passion with anybody who wants to watch my videos. So thanks very much for choosing some of these ways to support me. I'll put them on the screen right now for you all, and helps me on my mission and also helps me in terms of continuing to make this content for everyone. Thank you for letting me know where you're watching the channel from across the world. It's great to see all the different countries, towns, cities, villages and islands where people are that are watching my channel. And another shout out to all the women and ladies who are watching. Thank you very much for supporting my channel, and thank you also for dropping your comments. I'm seeing a lot more ladies putting their thoughts down in the comments as well. I'll see you all again tomorrow. It's time to say adios from beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Until then, stay safe, stay well everyone, and I'll see you again very shortly. Until then, bye for now.